One of a handful of companies making dairy proteins using microbes instead of cows, Israeli firm Remilk has global ambitions. But what are the economics of animal-free dairy, and how is the company addressing the capacity challenges in precision fermentation?
On a high level, when we think about cows as production vessels, they have many tasks in life that are separate to creating milk proteins. Cows have to grow, they have to reproduce, they have to walk, they have to eat, they have to build muscle tissue, fat tissue, and also create a little bit of milk. Now, one of the things that I love about microorganisms is how inefficient they are at multitasking, which is essentially why they're really good at single tasking. So they know how to do one thing at a time with extreme efficiency and convert one source of energy into one targeted molecule. And on a conceptual level, that's really what this is all about. It's about harnessing the extreme efficiency and inability of microorganisms to do a few things at once, to just do one thing extremely well.
So creating precision fermentation facilities is expensive, all of that stainless steel, the energy costs and so on. There are some other players out there in the molecular farming space that say it's going to be cheaper and more efficient to grow dairy proteins, for example, in corn or soy or lettuce, because there's an established infrastructure to tap into. Are they right?
We firmly believe that precision fermentation is the most efficient way to produce targeted molecules for what we are doing, so to produce ingredients for the dairy industry. However, we are confident that plants have promise as well. We very much hope that the companies working on that will succeed, because I think we need multiple solutions to bring forward this change.
So what dairy proteins are you making, and is it easier to make whey versus casein proteins?
Sure. So we are producing whey proteins and casein proteins, which are the two primary families of proteins within bovine milk. Those as well do separate down into other sub-proteins. And so whey is actually a family of several proteins. Casein is a family of 4 proteins itself. So we have independent production processes to produce the 2 primary whey proteins as well as the 4 caseins. And while each are at different stages of their development and stages of their commercialization, essentially, we are targeting the array of primary dairy proteins.
Which do you think you will come to the market with first?
Beta-lactoglobulin is the first product that we are commercializing. It's the product that we have actually scaled up to industrial scale and are currently producing in large volumes at efficient costs. And this is really what allows for us to bring products to consumers in the near future through our partners using the beta-lactoglobulin.
So as I understand it, you're using yeast as a microbe, as a host microbe for this. Other players, Perfect Day, is using a filamentous fungi. What are the pros and cons of these different microbes? Is it all about the yield, or is it down to the downstream processing, when you decide which microbe to use?
So in short, I think that our outlook at Remilk, and I think it's really important to state this up front, Remilk does not believe that there is one microbe with one specific set of modifications made that is going to be the all-star to produce anything and everything in the dairy space. We believe that one of our tasks is really to assess the wide variety of different microorganisms out there, sometimes yeast, sometimes bacteria, and sometimes fungi, to produce different targeted molecules. For our process, we've found that yeast has been, and our yeast, with the design that we've been able to implement, is actually the best yeast for producing the targeted protein that we are looking to produce in terms of efficiency, in terms of quality, and in terms of cost. I am confident that others have found some promise in the filamentous fungi for their production capabilities as well, but it's hard to necessarily pinpoint on that macro level what the differences between them are. It's all in the semantics. It's all in the specifics afterwards.
So some commentators have referred to a massive capacity bottleneck in the precision fermentation industry. What is the challenge, and how are you addressing it?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is, from my perspective, one of the primary challenges and hurdles that we as an industry need to overcome. Essentially, we're in the process of converting a technology of precision fermentation, which has been used for decades in other industries, primarily for pharmaceuticals or enzymes. And these are notoriously high-value, low-volume products, at least in comparison to food products. And food products would actually be the flip matrix there, right? So they would be low value and high volume. Our primary challenge is scaling the technology. It's not inventing a new technology, but it's scaling that technology for food use. While we rely on existing infrastructure around the globe, most of it was built for that high value, low volume matrix, and with specific controls for the pharmaceutical industry that are different than what's necessary for the food industry. So while we and the companies around us in our industry actually utilize those existing primarily pharmaceutical assets to produce today through contract manufacturing and co-production partnerships, in the long term, we believe that there need to be established very large-scale, tailor-made food-grade facilities that are established for this purpose alone. We at Remilk are in the process of establishing our own facility in Denmark, and this facility is really, in addition to its very large scale, it is tailor-made to our very specific needs and for the requirements of the food industry globally.
Can you say what feedstock you're using to feed your microbes?
So we actually don't disclose the specific feedstock that we use, and I think this is one of the things that is, many different companies keep pretty close to heart some of these specifics. What I can say is that we use and have designed our process from day one to use extremely available and cost-efficient raw materials. And I think this is what's key. While the industry that developed precision fermentation in the pharmaceutical space had the luxury of being able to use some pretty specialty raw materials at very high cost, we don't have that luxury. We need to produce at low costs, and we need to have sustainable, available supply globally. And so we actually use pretty standard carbon sources that are available globally with steady supply to ensure that.
What is the regulatory status of your ingredients, or what's particularly the first one places I like to lob in?
Absolutely. So we have attained our self-GRAS status in the U.S. And are in the process of attaining full GRAS status from the FDA, and that is actually where we will commercialize products to begin. And so today we are selling product into the U.S. and hope to have products on shelves for consumers pretty soon through our partners.
So what is your go-to-market strategy? Are you a B2B ingredient supplier, or are you looking to develop Remilk branded CPG products?
So Remilk is really focused on partnering. And through this partnership B2B model, Remilk is really interested in leveraging what we are very good at. And we believe that what we are good at is producing protein and producing protein efficiently, and then learning how to help CPGs work with that protein to produce finished products. But we also understand that we need to remain relatively focused on what we're good at. We can also rely on the extreme strength of the CPGs that we work with and the food service companies that we work with to formulate finished products that suit their needs, their consumers, and then bring those to market. They are the best storytellers out there, and we can help them understand our story and help them really move that forward to consumers. But we would love to rely on partners for everything.
So how do you talk to consumers about animal-free animal proteins?
So I think this is really an area that's in its infant status, and we're still really understanding what the right way to present much of this is. One of the things that I can say very clearly and happily from Remilk's perspective, we have run some consumer acceptance research and done some analysis on these topics, primarily asking the questions: should we or shouldn't we divulge more information? Because there is sometimes this preconception that more technology in our food can be a scary concept. We've been very pleased to see that actually the results of our consumer research have shown the opposite. Consumers are extremely interested in seeing what we're doing and understanding what we're doing, and so our perspective is really we just need to be as transparent as possible. One thing that may even touch on that, and we talk about this sometimes internally, our meeting rooms are set up with windows into our labs. Now, it may be difficult to decipher what exactly is going on behind there, but we really want consumers to understand that we are an open book. You come and see what we're doing, we want to share that.
Can I ask about the GMO factor? So in the US, if there is detectable amounts of modified DNA in the final product, it could trigger bioengineered labeling. Will that apply to your products?
No, it will not. So Remilk actually has if we go to our production process on a very high level, there is what we would generally refer to as upstream and downstream, right? And the upstream is the fermentation or the production of the protein, and the downstream is how do we isolate that protein and essentially separate it and dry it out into its powder form, which is our finished product. Through our upstream and downstream processes, we ensure that there is no detectable trace of the production organism in that finished product. And we do so by the most stringent standards on the globe, which are actually primarily dictated by EFSA, by the EU's regulatory body. And so we will take their stringent thresholds and implement those at labs across the globe, third-party labs, to ensure that we do remain under any detectable amounts.
So tell me a bit about the timetable. When do you expect to start producing quantities of whey protein from the plant in Denmark and that might hit the market?
Yeah, so we are aiming to produce from the production site in Denmark within 2 years, which would be a pretty big step forward for all of us. What I can very, very happily share is that we are already producing at scale through contract manufacturing and production partnerships. And so Denmark is a big step forward in terms of the volumes, in terms of the cost, and in terms of the, I'd say, hermetic sustainability of the whole story. We're producing in a circular economic industrial park, which means that our other resources are sourced sustainably. Our side streams and waste streams may actually be repurposed in this facility to ensure the sustainability of the whole cycle. But in the interim, we are definitely producing industrial scale protein and can supply customers, and that's really an exciting step forward for us already.
What are these side streams? What are the co-products from the manufacturing process, and what potentially could they be used for?
Side streams from the process can really be an array of different streams. An easy, simple stream would be the actual host microorganism that's producing the protein and is not the targeted product at the end of the day. So we understand that host organism, our yeast, is very, very high in certain nutritional values and has relevance for other applications for other industries. So without necessarily divulging too much, we are in the process of aligning with partners for the commercialization of that product as well, to make sure that we utilize as much of our process as possible. But in addition, we also have certain things that any industrial facility in the world will have, such as wastewater that needs to be cleaned and cleared, but also we have certain excess streams of steam or excess streams of heat. Well, those can actually be repurposed in this circular economy by other facilities, and we can utilize their excess streams, which are just a matter of having extra heat produced in your process or elsewise. One of the fascinating parts of Kalundborg is that there's a very close connection to the municipality as well and the residential neighborhoods. And so not only do we have the ability to feed the other facilities within our closed circle, but we can also give back to the public grid for the residential area of Kalundborg as well. And so there will be some, I would say, closed circle repurposing, but also actually giving back to the external circle as well. Remilk was really, really pleased very recently to pass the 100 employee threshold. And that was of course a big moment of pride and excitement for us. But Remilk has really built out our team over the last year and a half or so, adding on both to the commercial side, but very much to the R&D and engineering as well. We are still a majority of scientists and engineers with a very robust academic and professional background in producing either proteins through precision fermentation or in producing dairy products using the traditional proteins. And we combine those different sets of knowledge to really drive forward what we believe to be the change of how dairy will be produced in the future. So what you'll see here are very basic dairy processing equipment, whether it's a pasteurizer or homogenizers, some mixers, and other equipment that you would see in any food technology lab. One thing that is extremely important to us is to have equipment that is very modular and can really mimic what customer A works with and what customer B works with and what customer C works with, because we work with partners who have very different equipment in their facilities, and we want to make sure that our processes and our formulations fit their needs in each one.
That's really good. Yeah,
Oh.
It's kind of interesting what you can say you can do with an individual whey protein.
Well, it's really, so what we understand is that precision fermentation is not only enabling a much more sustainable production system, but it's also enabling some new creative concepts in formulation that didn't really exist before. So no food scientist in the past had the luxury of working with an isolated, defined molecule.
Yeah.
Or definitely not at scale.
It's interesting with the egg proteins as well, you know, the every company saying, well, you know, we've never individually commercialized these particular glycoproteins because why would we, right? But, you know, maybe they've got some interesting functionality, you know, super soluble proteins we can drop into a beverage or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to know what functionality is provided by which proteins and whether you need them all, and you can do some kind of cool new stuff.
And sort of, you know, I think one of the things that's, so when we look at our food technology department, and we'll walk through there in a moment, and I'll show you sort of where that split happens, but we have about half of that team that deals with applications and deals with developing different prototypes and assisting our partners in developing their products. But the other half of the team is more of a research-oriented team that's truly asking these very, very philosophical questions of how should food be produced?
Yes.
What do we know today that we can question? And we can go back and say, does it really need to be done that way?